Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. This is Kira from University of Southern California. Welcome audiences in Zoom, as well as our followers at live streaming platforms of USC Graduate Education. It's wonderful to see all of you today here. This is the 148th USC event. We're excited to present you a wonderful info session about one of our most popular programs, Applied Economics and Econometrics. So, featuring Dr. Radhika Nori and Dr. Yilmaz Koser, this webinar will lead you to discover the USC Master of Applied Economics and Econometrics program and insights on achieving your career goals. So, welcome Dr. Nari and the Director of Master Study in Department of Economics and Associate Professor of Economics Teaching at USC Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. And welcome Dr. Yilmaz Koser, the Assistant Professor of Economics Teaching at USC Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. And then we also have Candice Jiayi Xu, the Master's Program Admission Counselor and Department of Economics at USC Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. She will share the admission info with us later. And dear audiences, please note that we will have about 15 minutes Q&A section after speech. We encourage you to actively engage in our event by asking questions and share insights. Feel free to comment and type your questions in the chat box. We will try to get as many questions as we can at the end of speech. And can remind for Zoom audiences that this webinar will be recorded and might be used as video material in the future. So please mute yourself to ensure good in quality. Thanks for cooperation. Okay, now everyone, please join me in welcoming Dr. Nori and Dr. Koser and Candice. Next, I will turn it over to Dr. Narek. Thank you.
Thank you, Kira. I am so delighted to be here to speak to all of you about the program that I direct, which is the Master of Science in Applied Economics and Econometrics. You know, I'm not going to tell you why this program is better than the other master programs that are out there. What I'm going to do today is tell you why this program is very different, because we live in the world of data. And I'm sure all of you who are listening to me today or are going to hear this later on, you've heard of ChatGPT, right? What is ChatGPT? It's a transformer. It's nothing but an algorithm. And the way that this program is designed, it is going to help you develop skills that are going to be relevant from 30, 40 years from now, especially as AI is going to be making a lot of jobs redundant. You know, one of the things I love about this program is it allows you not just to get a degree, which is a graduate degree, you know, in applied economics and econometrics, but it really focuses on skills. And as you're listening to me, you know, I really want you to understand how you can use this degree to better yourself, to, you know, get into different careers, because there are a lot of options out there. I was an international student like you know, many years ago when I came to the US. I'm from India. And when I came here, I'm really glad that I was able to get into a program that made me get skills that I call transferable. You can transfer them from job to job, industry to industry. So welcome. As we'll go through the slides, I'll introduce the team. I'll introduce you to the classes that we teach in the program and teach you really what you can do afterwards, you know, with this degree. So Candice, if you want to go to the next slide. So this is the master's team. I direct the program. I'm also an associate professor of teaching. I mostly teach time series econometrics. So I really do mathematical modeling of data, which I love. And so if you want to specialize in any data analytics, you want to get into digital marketing, anything that has to do with data, you'll probably take my class. I also teach empirical finance because I really believe a lot of times when we think of machine learning and we think of prediction, right, trying to predict things, in finance, it's more tricky. So ChatGPT is easy because you can, you know, it's textual data, it's tabular data. You can write something, it predicts what should you do next. But when it comes to finance, when it comes to prediction, we really want to start thinking about how to use these algorithms in terms of algorithmic trading, in terms of financial data, bond prices, and things like that. So I teach a lot of that in my class. I also have an excellent team of staff that are going to be there to support you once you're here in the US. We have Candace, who is here with me today. She's the person who's going to be your point of contact when you apply to the program. Because, we get over almost 2,000 people who apply every year. And Candace is the first person who will review the files along with me and other faculty as well. And you have any questions about application, about tuition, scholarships, Candace should be the person to talk to. And, towards the end of this presentation, I'll have her email as well. We also have 2 master's advisors. They're not here today, but they'll be there to support you. They are the ones who will tell you what classes to take, what electives to take. If you have any issues with your classes, your grade, if they're not going as well as you want to, they'll be the ones who will be advising you and telling you all the resources that are there for you. Bit different than any other master's program because you have a lot of choices. There are lots of master's program in the US. And, one of the things I did when I took over the program is I redesigned it completely because I think education should be in charge of the students of what they want to do. It shouldn't be so structured in the sense that you come, you take classes, and then you graduate. Because, if you are like me, maybe you don't know what you want to do when you first enter the program. When I came to do my PhD, I thought I wanted to work in the World Bank, and I worked in the World Bank and I didn't like it. Then I went into consulting and I really didn't like it. And then I came back and I love what I do now. So a lot of the program really is designed to give you skills where you can transfer them to job when you're not sure. So when you enter the program, you obviously have a set of classes you have to take, but then you have a choice and a big variety of electives. And what I like about the program is if you're like me, I love computer science and I love mathematics along with economics. And when I was doing my PhD, I took classes in engineering as well as in the math department, which allows me to do what I do even today, after many years after my graduation. So if you come to our program, one of the good things is about 2 classes, which is 8 units, you can actually take in the Marshall School of Business. You can take it in Viterbi School of Engineering, especially if you want to do really, in-depth machine learning classes. You can also take classes in development in political science, for example. Obviously, it has to be something that's related to degree, but we allow you to take classes even in terms of physics as well. Because if you look at the world that we're living in, especially with AI, a lot of the work that's going to be done will be computationally very challenging. And a lot of things that are going to change are going to be to do with quantum computing. So I always encourage students take classes, which will teach you quantum algorithms, because that means 10, 20 years from now, when the world changes and the job market changes, you will always have skills that are tied to your skill set. This program, as you can see, is STEM designated, and that means that you're allowed to work for 3 years on your OPT, which is really, really good. That 24-month extension is, as an international student, this was one of the things I really wanted to do, because when I was doing my PhD, I only had 1 year of OPT, and it was really, really stressful. So I really like that for our international students, there's going to be a lot of support when you come here on an F1 visa. And if you can go to the next slide, Candace, thank you. So this is the timeline of the program. As you can see, if you're very ambitious and you want to finish in 1 year, you can absolutely do that. But maybe you want to take a little bit more time, especially when you come to another country, right? Sometimes you're homesick. It takes you time, especially the first semester is tough. So we also allow you to take, all the way to 2 years to finish this degree. About 85% of our students tend to finish in 1.5 years. That means they come in the fall, they take class in the fall semester, spring semester, they do an internship in the summer, and then they come back in the fall, and that's when they graduate. Sometimes students like to take the whole 2 years as well and graduate in the spring. So these are really the plan that you can kind of follow. And once you're here, the advisors will work with you very closely to help you decide, Do you want to graduate early, or do you want to graduate in 2 years? I always tell my students, you always want to enter the job market when there's no recession, because when you enter the job market in recession, your earning potential is really hampered. And so a lot of times I will tell students, this year is a tough job market, and I am seeing students delay their graduation by 6 months, and that's fine. A lot of our students are still getting placed, which is also nice, but it's really nice to have this flexibility of you, so you can tailor the degree to where you want to graduate. If you want to go to the next slide, Candice. So as you can see, we have 32 units in the program, and that means you have 4 classes that you have to take. And these 4 classes are micro, macro, and econometrics. You also have then a choice of either big data econometrics, because I really believe we live in the world of data. And that means this data is high dimensional, and you must learn how to work with high dimensional data sets. Because no matter which company you want to work for, Amazon, Uber, Google, or you want to work for a fashion house, you want to work for, maybe some fashion magazine, all of them will be looking at digital marketing, which is data-based data analytics jobs. And big data is a really, really important class. It's one of our core classes, but you don't really have to take it. You can also take economic consulting, which is very popular in the program as well. This is really for students who want to learn how to apply econometrics and regression techniques and work in the field of economic consulting, which is very, very popular as well. So, but once you've taken these core classes, then you have a choice of picking your electives. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you, these are the different specialization tracks that we have where you can really specialize in specific fields. A lot of you might not want to specialize in a field. So this is not a requirement of our program. This is really as a guidance. If you don't know what you want to do, but you want to just see what classes should I take if I want to work as an economic consultant, then you can look at the classes within the track of economic consulting. Maybe you want to work for Amazon. Maybe you want to work for LinkedIn. Then you want to really work in the big data track. Some of our students got jobs at TikTok. I really like TikTok. I think it's really cool because, again, the algorithm behind it is so, so good. And again, big data econometrics track will have classes where you can specialize within that track. But, a lot of students come to me and they tell me, I'm taking classes in the big data track. I like it, but I also in economics because I want to work on blockchain. I really want to learn about it because mechanism design is so important, especially in crypto economics. You can specialize in more than one track. As you can see, a lot of these tracks will have classes that overlap as well. And so we will allow you to specialize in more than one track. And at the end of the, when you graduate, you will get a certificate saying, you have specialized in this particular track. This is really the way that you will differentiate yourself when you are on the job market for your resume. Because remember, when you apply for jobs, there are thousands of people that are applying. You're competing with a lot of people. And even with all the AI tools that are out there, I tell my students, you must use AI for resumes, even for my exams. Students are allowed to use ChatGPT during my exam, because I think to not use AI, you're doing yourself a disservice. And a lot of times what I see students doing is they will then take different classes so that they can differentiate themselves when they enter the job market. So these are the 5 tracks that we have. And I'll go through each track in a little bit of a detail. I will stop when it comes to behavioral economics because we have another faculty, Yilmaz, who will talk about his class, the track, because he's a specialist in that field. So let's talk about my favorite track, which again, I'm biased because I love econometrics. This is like one of my favorite things to do. This track really exposes you to machine learning algorithms. And what is machine learning? Machine learning, I always say, it's not machine learning, it's statistical machine learning, right? It's a lot of hype has been going on about AI in the last 2 years, but we've been doing statistical machine learning since the 1980s. This is nothing new. All that is new now is because of, NVIDIA and the GPUs, we now have this vast computing capabilities. And now generative AI is really, really big. But machine learning is nothing but statistics. And so a lot of things that you'll learn in this class are things that have been there for a while in econometrics, and you'll learn how to apply it to data so that you become an applied econometrician. You'll also learn about causal inference. A lot of times people will tell you, all you see is correlation in regressions, and that's not causation. Where the newer econometrics that we have been learning in the last 7 to 8 years is all about how do you apply causality to data, to these models. And so that is the fun part of econometrics, is you can actually now do econometrics and pinpoint where the causality is coming from. We'll also talk about a lot about forecasting, which is really my specialty. And you'll take a lot of my classes, which teach you how do you forecast things in finance, in economics, in macroeconomics. How do you deal with things like the COVID-19 crisis, which is a structural break in the data? How to deal when you have regime, switching in the data? How do you deal with data that has a long-term memory, right? With things that happened 20 years ago are still embedded in the data structure. So all these classes are really fun because you can work with data from TikTok, you can work for data from finance. Any data that is ordered in time is really fun to work with, and you'll take classes in, econometrics in this field. One of our popular classes is time series analysis, which I teach, as well as big data econometrics, which Tim Armstrong teaches, who is really working at the frontier of big data econometrics in research. We also have a very popular class called Introduction to Market Design, which is one of the cooler classes. And if you take this track, you have a choice of taking 2 or 3 electives within these choices that you have. Students who've specialized in this track have got jobs at TikTok, Nestle, the data science team at KPMG, and other companies as well. So this is, again, one of the tracks if you are interested in working in any field that has to do with data analytics. This is the track that you should kind of, at least take a few classes, even if you don't want to specialize in it. If you can go to the next slide. Thank you, Candice. This is financial economics. And again, for those of you who want to work as quants in Goldman Sachs, we just placed one of our top, she's from China, my top student, she just got placed at Goldman Sachs. So if you want to work in Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, UBS, you want to work in asset management, you really should be taking classes that are teaching you financial economics. But not just financial economics, you must learn how to use machine learning and AI in finance. This is really the frontier in finance. There are very few people that are working in machine learning algorithms when it comes to financial data, because financial data is very hard to work with. So a lot of times when you take classes in the business school, they'll teach you financial stuff that was very relevant 30 years ago, but really, it's algorithmic trading that we want to teach you, and how to apply machine learning to financial data. So hopefully you can make some money on the stock market as well. So this is a fun track. It has a lot of electives, as you can see. You can take classes in game theory that Professor Kosher is going to talk about. You can take classes in neurofinance. Neurofinance is one of my favorite classes. Professor Corcelli, who's very nice, teaches this class, and it really teaches you how do you work with the theories that we've learned in psychology with investment decisions. And if you have ever read anything in behavioral economics, you'll understand that, we have a lot of biases. And that's why even in our AI, the algorithms also have biases, because they're obviously written by humans. And these biases are coming straight from our brain. So you have confirmation bias, you have, all these biases that Professor Kosher is going to talk about. But neurofinance is a very, very popular class because it teaches you how do you understand the decisions that we are making when it comes to reward and risk, and applied to financial markets. You can also take empirical finance, which is my class, again, which deals with machine learning and pattern recognition in financial data, and a lot of Bayesian optimization. And really, machine learning with financial data is what you're going to learn in that class. You'll also get introduced to algorithmic trading, if that's something of an interest to you in that class. But as you can go through the list, a lot of classes to choose from. One of our popular tracks for anyone interested in working in finance, I would urge you to look at these classes. And for the next track, we have Candace, yes, the economic consulting track. This is really for students who want to work in economic consulting. Remember, as an economist, you are trained in a very different way. A lot of times when software engineers take my class, they get very lost because, sometimes they have a tunnel vision. They're very good at coding, but they don't have broad skills because they don't know how to use those skills in different fields. And as economists, when you come to this program, you're going to learn things that are going to help you in very, very different career tracks. And this is one of the tracks where you can work with lawyers for litigation, for antitrust issues. If you look at what's happening in the world today with especially AI company, right now there's a monopoly where Google, Microsoft, and NVIDIA, right, have really their, almost all control. And when you think about OpenAI, we all say it's not open, right? It's not open source. We do not know what is the code that is behind ChatGPT. It's not open source. And so a lot of times you'll see that a lot of these antitrust cases that are coming up. And for all of these firms, as well as for the US government, they need to hire economists to help them build their cases. And this is where you'll come in because you don't need a PhD, a master's degree specializing in this track where you have access to game theory, market design, and econometric classes. You should be able to get a really, really solid job. It's going to be relevant for years and years to come. A lot of our students have been placed at PwC. I used to work at PwC and Deloitte before I came back here. So a lot of my former firms have hired a lot of my students, and they've done really, really well. We also have local firms in LA that have hired our students. And, if you specialize in this track, it's going to be a really, really, a cool career, I think, because you work on different cases and you work with different clients. So if you can go to the next track, this is maybe the next one as well, Candice, and we'll come back to this one. I'll just talk for 5 more minutes on this track. This is the economic policy and development track. If you are excited about capital flows, you are interested in foreign trade, you want to understand how labor laws are made and how the WTO, all these negotiations that are going on, especially if you're from a developing country, when you want to understand why India and China sometimes are at heads with the US in terms of trade policies, even for climate change and things like that, this is a good track to, specialize in. We have really, really cool classes on open economy, macroeconomics, economic development, urban economics, which is a very popular class as well. You learn about environmental economics in that as well as field experiments. So for all the students who want to work at the World Bank, the IMF, some of our students got hired at both the IMF and the IFC, which is the International Finance Corporation in Washington, D.C. This is a really, really good track to have. And so if you want to go back, Candice, to the previous slide, and then Yilmaz, if you want to talk a little bit about the classes for behavioral economics.
Oh, let me unmute myself. Hello, everybody. By the way, will I be able to share my slides? One moment. Okay. So hello, everybody. Let me briefly talk about the behavioral track. First of all, the classical question, what is behavioral economics? So roughly, well, it is behavioral and it is economics. So behavioral meaning, if you have ever taken any economics class, macro econometrics, generally there's a huge rationality assumption built in. Generally, what we think about people making decisions is they have the perfect command of the set of choices available to them, and they completely have like a full foresight of what's going to happen. They can judge and compare different alternatives perfectly. They have perfect memory, and they are like computers, to be specific. So behavioral economics just dilutes these assumptions and says that, hey, well, these are not real humans. So it just like approximates real human behavior by making more psychologically plausible assumptions about the decision making. So in general, it is a correction, I would say, smoothing out of the rational decision-making body of economic theory to the real life. So in that sense, it is an interdisciplinary field where it is in the intersection of like economics, computer science, if you can believe, right? Well, biology is naturally the, very lower level, ancestor of this science, but more closely neuroscience, cognitive science, psychology, social psychology. So it is a critique of the rational decision-making model. And insofar as like its success, it builds its success on the ability to much more correctly predict human behavior and uncover heuristics and biases that actually people use in making decisions, rather than some very, maybe rigid optimization. I'm going to also connect it to the big data and the machine learning and this literally new age that we are living in. And I'm going to try to make a case that actually, I would say they are not substitutes, but they are complements actually, because, there might be a critique in that, well, with the big data, now we have such computing power and such data analysis methods that we don't need much theory. We're going to hit everything to the, the data analysis framework, and then it's going to tell us what is the correct, truth, I would say, the underlying truth. But it is not always the case. And somehow data only finds out what you actually throw at them. So in that sense, there is still room, in that sense, some kind of a meta wisdom that would be delivered by behavioral economics kind of like theories, kinds of like disciplines. So let me go into a bit like more concrete like examples. So roughly, it's going to give you, for example, new methods of intervention of consumer behavior, of medical behavior, legal decision making, political decision making, social decision making, voting decisions, marketing, advertising, you name it. As long as there is multiple people, so you're not talking about a person living in an island, so there is interactions between people, so there is strategies, and there are some imperfections that's not modeled by a standard micro or macroeconomics course or macroeconomics course, then you are literally in the behavioral economics like realm. So of course, one of the not predictive, but prescriptive objectives of the discipline or side of the discipline, I would say, is, of course, to nicely nudge people to correct behavior. I know it sounds a little bit like dictatorial, but roughly the idea is that there are many cases that the welfare of the individual understood by himself or herself actually is something that actually he or she cannot carry out ultimately. He or she has many biases, problems, the commitment issues in her own decisions. So how could we nudge them to decisions that they would actually, after the fact, be pleased about, be happy about? So that is what behavioral economics offers, or that's what it promises. So here there's a list of like literally these are chapters in a behavioral economics kind of course, I would say, almost a graduate course. So there would be the consumer side, consumer decision making, similarly the firm side of it. Similarly, in a medical health care analysis framework, you would talk about patients' decision making or the doctor's decision making. Still, we can talk about patients' biases. More importantly, doctors, like healthcare professionals' biases, and how we could overcome them or diminish them, at least mitigate them. Similarly, in urban economics, environmental economics, in all human decision making, there would be a case to be made for behavioral elements, I would say, for things that are not fully rational, but still being able to be modeled. So for example, these would be some standard questions that comes to mind rather easily, and behavioral economics offers an analysis, offers actually multiple analysis, multiple kinds of paths to. There are many cases where default actions matter. For example, a classical example would be, I know this is not going to sound very economic, but people have in United States, people have when you apply for a driving license, they ask you whether you want to donate your organs in case of you are medically you are in a vegetative state, I would say, so legally and medically you are dead. So you can either write like a tick there so that you can be opting in, or in some other states, actually they set the question in such a way that actually you are automatically in, you are an organ donor, but you have to take a sign to opt out, so that no, I do not want to be in that. So if I'm in that condition, do not take my organs. So it turns out that actually in these states, 90%, 85% follow the default. So in the states where you're automatically in, but you need to just like click, you just like take a small pen stroke to opt out. People actually do not do that. And in the other set of states where actually you're already out, but you need to just have a small tick, very few people opt in. So the default actions matter much. Not only in this decision, but maybe in retirement decisions, in many other choice environments, status quo actions that matter. So this is a classical case where behavioral economics can be brought to bear, for nudges. Similarly, many people exercise too little, they save too little. Again, these are commitment problems where rational economics is generally choose not to model, or maybe at times they do not find it so important. Or in general, people's biases, for example, overconfidence about the real life, about themselves, about their own abilities, about market interactions, of course, affects outcomes. So we cannot just like say that, oh, well, irrational people are pruned away somehow like natural selection, so we don't need to worry about them. Unfortunately, they do not cancel out. The errors are not like left and right so that they cancel out, but unfortunately, they are generally in a systematic way in some direction. So if everybody is irrational in a particular way, sometimes the rational actor cannot survive or do not do good, let me say. So we really need to analyze like what's happening in these kinds of situations. Similarly, in risk behavior, people, the returns on equity is very high compared to bonds. So meaning people somehow seem to be rather too much risk averse in some financial settings. And if you want to use that amount of risk aversion, you cannot explain anything that they do in other domains. Yet people at the same time buy lotteries and insure against very big risks like house fire or earthquake. So these seem to be in conflict with a standard kind of rational analysis. Similarly, people borrow on credit cards yet hold illiquid assets like at the same time. People are reluctant to sell stocks at a loss. I mean, if you have a stock, you say that, oh, I do not want to accept defeat, and you just like want the price to go up to where you bought, for example. The very standard inertia in financial decision making. Again, in a social behavioral case, people do not just care about their own outcomes, but people, well, sometimes they are charitable, sometimes they are spiteful. There is some positional externalities. You compare your happiness, not just like directly your bottom line, how much money you make or what kind of consumption opportunities you have, but what your neighbor has, what your brother has, what your sister has. So everything is relative in that sense. So these are all different approaches that behavioral economics like model. So coming back to the behavioral economics track, what we offer at USC. So the promise is not just like a theoretical exercise to know stuff, to learn stuff, but actually to be able to do some hands-on research. Because, I mean, the main thing I'm going to go into is we have a very good lab, one of the best on the West Coast for sure of US, label, Los Angeles Behavioral Economics Lab. They have very good devices. There's a huge lab, very well worked thus far for tens of years, as I know, and from what I remember, 10, 15 years ago, they have eye tracking devices. They have, palm stress measures and many other devices that actually there's a plethora of experiments then that can be run in the lab. At the same time, the econ department also has some close relationships with the cognitive science department, psychology departments. There are many co-authorship going on. So they have excellent research facilities, fMRI machines and such. So there is a lot of research opportunity in that sense. So for the classes, we have the behavioral economics class, 606. This is about behavioral economics. So all kinds of economics, not directly experiments, but field data, theory, behavioral economic theory. How do we model people's decisions over time in the face of risk, in the face of ambiguity, uncertainty, fear, anxiety? Like, how do we model these? How do we model people's attitudes towards fairness, spite, inequality? So interestingly, these can be modeled, and there are very famous models that are actually worked to analyze policy outcomes, for example. So on the other hand, we have the 620. One moment, there's a nicer graph here. So experimental methods. So experimental methods is, well, mostly about experimental methods. Here, the core idea is not about what the experiments say, but the methods, what kind of software is used, what are the controls, what is the special thing, what do we need to be careful about when running experiments, what are the critiques to some very well-known experiments. So these are about methods. For 616, the experimental economics. So these are the experimental body of behavioral and experimental economics. 516, so this is a joint course between Econ and Psychology department. So this is about models generally, accompanied with experiments, of course, but it's about how do we model human memory? How do we model human risk, decision making under risk? So these are models that are, psychologically supported, by recent psychological findings. I'm going to be teaching Econ 504, the game theory with econ and financial applications. So this is a econ course that's going to be, by the way, this is an evolving course. So this started out with game theory is a rather classical topic, so which I'm going to go into it for a couple of minutes after this. So it's been taught almost the same way in the last 40 years, across the world, to be honest. But now recently, with the advance of this ML methods, the big data, and all this new developments, it has found some new use in these areas. So there are some work towards tailoring it to some special purposes everywhere. So we are trying to address that change too for us. Neurofinance, Giorgio Corcelli is teaching this class. He also teaches in the undergrad level and at this level too, neurofinance, a very popular class. It's about, neurological models of financial decision making, neurological analysis of, I would say. So, for example, you are making financial decisions, making risky choices in an fMRI machine. So they measure blood flow in some brain areas. I hear that there are even a little bit more invasive, but more like a point blank analysis research methods now available. That's not my field exactly, but that I know to be the case here. So these are the games. So one last thing. Most importantly, Kerry. So okay, we all did this. So what is this about, right? So what's going to happen at the end? So let me say something. So there's a slide here, and I'm going to briefly talk about where you can find a job. My personal opinion is that, as you can see from the list of non-academic choices, all the tech companies employ behavioral economists, game theorists. I have personal friends in most of these big companies like Google, Facebook, Uber, eBay. I know friends. So that's definitely the case. So marketing departments, consulting, policymaking institutes, they all employ behavioral economics, game theorists, healthcare, maybe more importantly this. My idea overall, though, to behavioral economics is that not maybe so much so for game theory. Game theory was here maybe in the last 70 years, so it is most likely have found its meaning and anchor and value in the market, I would say. So it is the long run for game theory now. So it is settled somehow for the better or worse. But for behavioral economics, it still seems to be like how would I say it? It's still like a long shot. In this long shot meaning, let me identify what I mean by this. I feel it is still an unsaturated field, particularly in relation to its applications in the field and its, ultimately money-making opportunities. There is a lot of theory. There is a lot of experiments run. So generally, the studies are in the direction so far in the last 30 years was in the direction of figuring out how humans actually behave. And people understood how humans did these weird things, biases, heuristics, and they said, but nobody made much money yet, in my mind.
All right. So Yilmaz, I'm going to stop you now because I think we also want to go over the admissions, all right? So I think you did a really good job because you actually told everybody about the track and the classes. So maybe we'll go back to the original slides now, if that's okay with you.
Yes, sure.
Perfect. So Candace, if you want to go back to your slides. And I just want to say one thing about this track that Professor Kocher was talking about. As he was saying, the newer developments are really in application of game theory to blockchain. So if you are interested in working in crypto, you're interested in working with anything that uses blockchain technology, mechanism design, and applied game theory is really the class that you should be focusing on. And that's really the frontier of research. That's really where the focus should be if you are interested in that field. And so as you're coming into the program, I always tell students, be proactive, already know what is it that you want to do once you graduate. You're allowed to change your mind, obviously, because the program is very flexible. But you must know what is it that excites you about a certain field. Is it consulting? Do you want to like to work with clients? Is it blockchain and crypto? Do you like to do algorithms? Or do you want to maybe start your own business? Do you want to be an entrepreneur, right? So the program, I think, allows you to develop skills in all of these fields. So if you could go to the next slide, Candice, I'll just take 5 minutes and then you can go to the admissions. So I just want to talk a little bit about recent placement, because you spend a lot of money on your education. And I always tell students, don't think of it as a cost. You should think of it as an investment in yourself. Because when you get a degree like this, which is giving you skills, you will end up with a very, very successful career. And 20% of our students actually go on to do their PhDs. So this is the recent placement of our PhD students. The top PhD students at USC are all my master's students. So obviously USC is one of their top choices for their PhD in economics. We've also placed students for PhD in economics at NYU, Duke, UC Davis, UCI. One of our students is doing his PhD in finance at Texas A&M, and another one just got accepted at Notre Dame this year. So there's a lot of success. If a PhD is what you're after, you are going to get exposed to almost 80% of PhD level classes. We just don't go too deep, but we expose you to almost 80% because the program is rigorous in terms of giving you really, really good skills. And obviously you can see these are pictures of all our students who graduated, and we are so proud of them. The next slide is going to tell you, again, placement of our students who don't want to do a PhD, because 80% of our students really want to work for a few years and then apply for a PhD, or some of them don't. So we have students who got into Beacon Economics, Resolution Economics, Charles Rivers Associates, which are really good economic consulting firms. We had one student get a job in digital marketing in Foria, which is a European company. We've placed students at the World Bank, Goldman Sachs, UBS, Morgan Stanley, as you can see, a lot of other companies as well. So you can see the success of the program is really, for me, highly dependent on how we are able to place our students. Whether the job market is tough or not, I'm very proud that the students are getting good jobs even this year. And these are, again, pictures of students from my class time series, just showing off their work in prediction. This slide for me is very close to my heart, because I really believe what will differentiate you when you enter the job market is not just your technical skills. Because again, the program is rigorous, it's going to give you technical skills, but it's really your social skills. Emotional intelligence is very, very important. And I always urge my students, you must learn how to communicate. Communication skills is really important. It's not just the quality of your ideas that matter when you are thinking about success in a career, but it's your ability to communicate those ideas. And written communication is something we emphasize a lot in the program, as well as verbal communication. So a lot of these events that you are seeing here are me forcing my students to talk to people that they don't know, so that they develop those social skills. It really helps them when they are interviewing for jobs, because they have actually talked to people who, they've not met, but they've met them at these events. I invite a lot of directors of data science from consulting firms to our events, and we have a lot of speaker sessions. So on Monday, I've invited one of my contacts from Google who works on machine learning and AI to come and speak to my students about generative AI, Gen AI, and really how to use it in business. Because all this hype about AI is really going to be there if you're able to use it and save money for a company. And so his talk on Monday is really going to be about unleashing the potential of generative AI. We also had speakers come to talk to my students on blockchain. We had students come from Google, Airbnb, data scientists. And I really enjoy the speaker sessions because the students get access to people who are actually using econometrics, game theory, and other classes in their jobs right now. So these are, again, pictures of all the events. And hopefully, if you come here, you'll get to one of them as well. And if you can go to the next slide, Candice. This is now really what you should be focusing on if you're thinking of applying for the program. And Candice, our admission counselor, is going to tell you all about it.
Thank you, Radhika. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight with us. And I'm going to share a little bit about admission information for our program. So first of all, since our program really requires a foundation of economics and a mathematical background, so we are looking for students that have taken at least a year of calculus and as well as a semester of statistics for their academic background. And at the same time, we also strongly encourage applicants to have taken intermediate microeconomics and intermediate macroeconomic courses prior to applying to the program to get you prepared to start the program. And to a lot of students might be curious, what will be the cost of attendance and what financial supports we might have. So for the tuitions, for this year, it will be around $2,000 per unit, and please expect a 3 to 5% tuition increase each year. And for the total cost of the program will be around $2,000 US dollars times of the unit. And for our program, which is 32 units, so your estimation will be 75,000. And a good thing will be our scholarships. So this year we are launching our merit scholarships, and our program is having scholarships to be awarded based on the students' academic excellence and professional achievements. And also, in addition, we will have financial aids. About that, please talk to the USC Office of Student Financial Aid, and they will provide you more information regarding those various type of financial supports. Admission requirements. So we do have 5 major materials that we're looking for. So first of all will be the statement of purpose. This is a typical 2-page in length, double space for you to talk about your interest in economics. This is a broad idea, and you can feel free to write about your interest in any fields of economics. And the second will be the GRE scores. So GRE score will be a mandatory requirement for our upcoming cycle. And we do not accept a GMAT, but we do accept GRE scores that's within 5 years old. And we really wanted to see applicants with at least 150 on verbal sections and 151 on quantitative sections. And number 3 will be the transcripts, and transcript will be the most important components that we're looking for. And we're looking for applicants that must upload all application material into our application system. And based on the USC requirements, please upload scanned copies of your official up-to-date transcripts. And the Departments of Admission team will review the upload transcripts for the decisions. As I mentioned earlier, on the transcript, it will be nice if you show those mathematical backgrounds. And number 4 will be 3 letters of recommendations. So we are needing 2 of the letters from academic recommenders, which is your professors. And all of these can be also uploaded on the online application system. Last but not the least will be the English proficiency requirements, and this will be for international applicants only. So we do accept both TOEFL and IELTS examinations. And please notice that for TOEFL, we need a 90 or above with 20 or above in each sections. And for IELTS test will be a 6.5 or above with 6 or above on each band. And you are very lucky to be here today because we are still recruiting for the upcoming semester, which is fall 2024. And if you're really interested, please feel free to apply online through this website, or you can feel free to talk to Professor Norag and me as well. And our application for fall 2024 will be due on April 30th, 2024, which is we still have about 10 to 20 days. And please, for all the applicants, please complete your applications no later than 8:59 on the deadline date. And all applications materials, including test scores or letter recommendations, must be submitted by the deadline. If you're experiencing any difficulties, feel free to reach out to me.
Oh, thank you, Candice. And I just want to give you, one advice. Even though we say, yes, you must have micro and macro as a background, I've admitted students who are engineers into our program that have never taken economics. And the student who got into the PhD program at NYU was not an economics student. She was a math student. And so, as long as you have a strong background in calculus, linear algebra, probability, you're going to be fine because we will teach you micro and macro when you're into the program. So don't worry if you feel like your economics is, a little rusty. As long as your math and your statistics is good, you're going to be fine in the program. So I see a lot of questions. I'll just take the first one that I saw. Somebody talked about digital marketing. And this is very important because a lot of times when you think of your career profile as an economist, you think, well, I'm going to work, at the World Bank, at the government job. And I always tell you, if you have data skills, you can work in anything. So digital marketing really has two components. It is your ability to analyze data. So it's all the classes you're going to take in the program. And that's where some of our students are getting placed as, again, digital marketing analyst. And so this is a really, really exciting field because no matter what you're thinking about in terms of even things like, New York Times, it's a newspaper, it is all night. They do monitor traffic and they do have, again, marketing campaigns. They want to see what things are going viral. And you, as a student of economics, will be accessing that. Even when I write some things on LinkedIn, sometimes, it goes viral. And a lot of times some other professors come and ask me, why is your post going viral on LinkedIn? And I always tell them it has to do with communication, skill sets, right? So as you come into the program, don't just think I'm just going to be pigeonholed and I'm going to do just one thing. If you develop skills, you can be good at digital marketing. You can be good in government jobs. You can be good in a PhD program. You just have to have the skills that you can transfer from different, into different fields. Any other questions? If anybody sees and wants to tell me, I'm happy to answer them. And Yilmaz and Candice can also pitch in.
Thank you, Dr. Nari and Dr. Koser and Candice. Thanks so much for giving this excellent presentation and detailed information. I think audiences now may have a clear picture about our tailored program, about course, tracks, resources, and also know the key points about application. And we also got one question regarding behavior economics for Dr. Koser. And the question is from the audience named Huang. Thank you, Professor, valuable insight on behavior economics, which have enlightened me on new perspectives regarding the areas I should consider pursuing in the future. During the presentation, you referenced insurance. How can the skills acquired from your program assist me in entering this industry? Thank you, Dr. Koser.
Yes, I try to answer it on the message, but roughly my idea is for actuarial science, I think big data methods would be very much relevant. I do not directly know actuarial science, but my brother is actually working in the reinsurance industry, like Deutsche Rück in Germany. From what I hear from him is actually econometrics is very influential in the insurance industry in general.
Yes, and not just that, even for fraud detection now, we use machine learning algorithms. So, absolutely take behavioral classes. But if you want to get into any kind of actuarial sciences, insurance, fraud detection, take econometrics classes because one of the things that you'll be doing is called model validation. And this is, again, a skill set that only econometricians have. And this is a very, very exciting field to be in, I think.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And another question from the audiences named Deng Mingmi from our Zoom. Nowadays, it seems that big data and machine learning are closely linked. Would I have the opportunity to take classes on machine learning in our program?
Absolutely. You can take classes. You will get exposed to machine learning algorithms in the big data econometrics class. You will then apply those algorithms in time series class with me. But you can also take machine learning classes in Viterbi, which is the School of Engineering. I have allowed students to take some of their machine learning classes as well.
Thank you, Doctor. Another question from Zoom. Hello, the session was wonderful. Thank you. I have a question with regarding to the scholarship. How much is the max amount offered, and will it be shared along with the offer letter?
Yes, so the scholarships will be decided once we have finished our certification process, where we know the incoming class. That's when I'm going to start, reviewing based on merit. This is the first time we have started. The minimum amount that you'll get is $3,000, and then it'll go up depending on, how good you are of a candidate. And again, you will get notified. So you will get the first, email saying, congratulations, you've been accepted into the MSAE program, but you're not going to hear about the scholarship till, I would say, end of May.
Thank you, Doctor. Following question from live streaming regarding the scholarship too. What kind of students are eligible to get a scholar? Would you please kindly have to elaborate the requirement?
The requirement really is, it's a need blind scholarship. That means it's just based on merit. So I will look at your application file and I will see, what you've written in your letter, the statement of purpose, what you've written in your essay, if you have taken classes that are exceptionally, rigorous in terms of your undergrad education, and I see a potential, then absolutely you'll be getting a scholarship.
Thank you, Doctor. Next question from Zoom, also from Deng Ming. The question is, when exploring different programs that include data analysis in their curriculum, I noticed a wide range of options available. Could you please provide guidance on how to evaluate and compare these programs to determine which one might be more advantageous than the others? I think the audience's name means the tracks.
Yes. So if within the tracks, right, you will, when you come to USC and after you've taken your core classes, you're going to have individual meetings with your advisors, and they will help you and guide you into what classes to choose from. A lot of times you'll also, when I have a welcome event, you'll meet a lot of other students who've already taken those classes, and they're also going to give you guidance as to what classes you should take. So you'll get a lot of support. We don't expect you to know exactly what you want to do as soon as you enter. But if you're interested in financial economics, then look at the classes within the track and see. It's okay to change your mind and say, I don't really like financial modeling that much. I'd rather do behavioral economics. You're allowed to change your mind. That's totally fine. But you'll get a lot of advice and guidance. We also have a lot of coffee chats with professors and faculty. So a lot of times I'll take about 10 students. Yilmaz has taken some students as well. And this is a very small group where you can individually ask the faculty, career advice and things like that. And then, the faculty buys coffee for you with some snacks. And it's just nice to get that mentoring because that's very important.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, next question from Alan Zhu. I also found the course Game Theory with Economics and Financial Applications in 3 tracks: Economic Consulting, Behavioral Economics, and Financial Economics, which I think it is a very key and popular course. Well, if I tend to choose Big Data track, can you explain further about the course to help for the job? Thank you.
Yilmaz, do you want to talk about the?
Yes. Yeah. So from my experience, the job market do not directly call for like, hey, we are looking for an econometrician or data scientist, data scientist economist or a behavioral economist directly. But the way that the industry operates, for example, you are applying for a Walmart. In my time, and actually a couple of years back too, like here, Sam's Club, some big retail firms look for actually economists. But when you look at the job description, they're actually looking for a behavioral economist. They are going to work on behavioral data to, work as an economist. So in that sense, that would be very helpful because the job description, when you see what kind of business they are in, you would most likely be in a very good position being trained in the behavioral economist kind of like specialty. On the other hand, like in terms of the applications, when you look at like, for example, medical decision making, I know that Google has a huge drive in some mental health, for example, apps, mental health, applications of big data. So I hear that behavioral economists were, searched for by Google in the last 2-3 years, I hear. So, I mean, these are direct examples that I hear. But again, I'm saying behavioral economist has so far, like in the last 20 years, they had the ideas, they had the predictions, but they didn't have the data to translate the findings into money-making devices. I mean, this is my opinion partly, but what I guess is in the next 20 years, this might be the way that it translates into some workable business ideas, I would say, in terms of behavioral economics. So far, they were just very coarse experiments because they didn't have the data. So hopefully this helps.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Coulter. And also thanks, Candice, for answering questions in our chat. Okay, are there any other questions from Zoom for our Zoom audiences? Please feel free to type in the chat box. And we also got many questions on the live streaming platforms. And I choose one because of the limited time. Dr. Narik, you just mentioned AI and ChatGPT many times, and caused a discussion among our audiences from live streaming. Their concern is that a person's position or job will be replaced by AI. Would you mind to share your opinion about it? Thank you.
Absolutely. There are a lot of jobs that are going to be redundant, but this is what economics is, called the art of creative destruction. Anytime you have innovation, some jobs will be lost, and that's why people have to understand that reskilling, focusing on skills is very crucial. You come to graduate school to always be a learner. I really advise you to build that skill set where you are really focused on being curious in the world. I did my PhD a long time back. I'm pretty old, but I'm still learning new things. A lot of things I teach in my class are things that came out last week. So I will maybe study all weekend, just to teach that to my students. And it keeps me really excited about my field. So when you're thinking about AI replacing jobs, I don't think you should be scared. You should be excited that we are now living in the world where a lot of grunt work is going to be done by AI. I'll give you an example. My time series class, the students have an online midterm. They can use ChatGPT in the exam, Google search in the exam. It's a timed exam. And even then, there are students who get less than 50. Even with all the options in front of you, because if you don't know how to critically think, AI is not going to help you. So I would always tell you, don't be scared of AI. AI is really there to do all the work that you really don't want to do. Think about, going to the bank to deposit a check. No, but I've never been to the bank in the last, I don't know how many years. I take a check that I get, I take a picture of it, I upload it. That's AI. Facial recognition on your phone, that's AI. So AI has been there for a really long time. Generative AI with the pictures and the text is the new thing. And there is a lot of hype about it. So as students of economics and econometrics, I would tell you, don't be scared, be very excited, but take classes that will teach you skills that are going to be relevant 30 years from now, not just next year.
Thank you so much, Dr. Narik. And Dr. Coulter, would you mind to add some information? And one of our audiences from the live streaming have taken marketing behavior course many years ago. And the audiences would like to know, after AI comes out, does it have any influence on behavior courses and how?
Actually, I think behavioral economics in general, rather than even game theory, is better situated to not to be affected adversely, I would say, with the this big data paradigm in general, because the thing is, when you look at the data, as I said, like people have biases. Figuring these out from large groups of large amount of data is going to be still analyzed through the behavioral economic theory tools. So in that sense, it's going to give you an idea of what kind of a for example, what kind of a marketing device would be most effective, in a certain marketing situation. So behavioral economics will give you an idea, hey, people have these kinds of biases. People are going to be attracted to this option rather than this option. So you're going to search that side of the field, I would say, in the data. So in that sense, it would be, I would say, less prone to being obsolete in my mind. Because the classical models, let's say macro financial economics, they were hugely dependent on maybe the theoretical body of the knowledge. But behavioral economics is mostly about the human behavior and how the final user acts and behaves. So I think that in that sense, it's going to be better situated.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koser. And now,
sorry, Candice, can you go to the next slide so they can get emails of us? So yeah, you can still ask the questions just so that they have everybody's emails.
yeah, thank you. Okay, the next question from web streaming. The audiences noticed that there is a topic named the global financial crisis when talking about the economic policy and development track. Now is the post-pandemic era. The economy is recovering slowly. The big companies are all facing layoffs. How should we respond to the current economic situation? The audiences would like to know what students could get in this topic.
So as you take these classes, remember, we have business cycles. So even when you have shocks like COVID-19, the economy is pretty resilient. When you look at even the stock market, how badly it fell in April of 2020 and versus how it's doing right now. Or even if you look at Japan's stock market, which has been in the slumps for 10 years, and now it has, beaten all records. This is how, this is the type of thinking that I would like you to focus on. So when you come to the program, don't worry if there are layoffs in tech. They overhired, during the COVID times, and now they are just going back to, again, dealing with the uncertainty that is out there in terms of, inflation and things like that for the US economy, at least. So I would not be worried so much if you are a well-rounded student where you have skills in different fields. You are going to be fine. If you look at layoffs are happening primarily in the tech sector. We are not seeing, our students not getting placed, at least this year. So I will not worry so much if I were you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And following two questions regarding our career services. The audiences was impressed most by the AE alum placement. They are all world-renowned financial institutions like Goldman, TikTok, KPMG, PwC, and so on. Would you mind to share the titles and positions the alumni have in these companies, and how do they usually get the placement opportunities? Regarding the career services, would you mind to give more details? Thank you.
Of course. So if you follow the LinkedIn page for the MSAE, I manage it. So I posted a job at Apple today for a data scientist. And so a lot of jobs are posted on the LinkedIn page, but we also have an internal, website where Candice will post the same jobs for them. So students have access to all the openings at the World Bank, at Apple, at Goldman Sachs, at JP Morgan for different careers, for master's students. And so you will have a lot of support. We also have a USC Career Services team. So we just did a talk with the USC Career Services, where they did a session for an hour talking about how to tailor your resume to jobs, how to have a job search strategy, a session on cover letters. So we will have a lot of support for you once you're here. And, if you want, you can send an email to Candice or me, and we can reply with titles for each position that you're interested in applying for. You can also contact these alums that we have. So if you go on LinkedIn, you should add these, students from our program and also ask them, I'm a new student. I'm thinking of applying for the MSAE. How did you, as an international student, get a job at Goldman Sachs? Can you share that with us? And I think that's really how you will build your own network. Networking is very important. And that's one of the skills that I really want our students to have.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And for the live streaming platforms audiences, please know that please follow AE on LinkedIn, USC, MS, Applied, and Econometrics. Thank you. Okay, next question is for Dr. Kuser. One of our audiences mentioned the behavior economics lab in our department. Can students get internship in the lab, and how about the requirements? Thank you.
Yes, I do not know about the internships, but there are some research assistants that are regularly recruited. Actually, even undergrads are recruited at times. But for the master students, most likely you're not I mean, you will be part of the research actually. You might not be a co-author in a paper, yet still be involved in the lab work, that I know. But I'm not sure about the payments other than the being a subject in the experiments, to be honest.
Yeah, you can also email individual professors, and they have hired our students, master students, as RAs.
Oh, yeah.
We
There's that.
also have CSER, the Center of Economic and Social Research at USC. They've also hired our students. You can also get a job as a grader, I think.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you so much, doctors. Okay, audiences, I have saw your passion on our AE program, but because of the limited time, I will choose the last two questions. Thank you for your cooperation. Okay, the first one is, would you mind to share the employment rate of graduates in 1 year? Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. What would you like to know?
Would you mind to share the employment rate in 1 year for our graduates?
Employment rate, I think all of our students who are graduating have been placed either in a PhD program or they've got jobs. Some of them will not be able to find the jobs that they want in LA. So they have moved to, say, Texas. One of them is moving to Boston. Some of them get really good offers from Shanghai, for example. They choose them as well. But if you want specific data, I think Candace and I can email that to you as well.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, doctor. And the last question is regarding our PhD program. Does student have any advantages if you would like to apply for PhD Econ in Dornsife as a graduate from AEE? Would you please give some advice on this? Thank you.
Absolutely. Our students, the master students, are allowed to take the PhD level classes. So if you do well in one of the PhD level classes, the professors already know that you're good. And you can also speak to some of the PhD students who were master students, and they will guide you as to how they went about applying for the program. But I always tell students, if you're very good, it's not just the USC Econ department you should be looking for. You should be looking at NYU. You should be looking at Minnesota. One of our students got into the PhD program at the University of Minnesota, which is very, very good. And so, absolutely apply for the USC Econ PhD, but apply to the top 10 PhD programs as well. Some of our students have got there as well.
Thank you so much, doctor. Another two questions came out from our Zoom audiences. The first one is, I apologize. The first one is, I want to know about the CAFE Center at USC. Are master students recruit for RAS at CAFE? Thank you.
So that is the Center for Applied Financial Economics that Professor Pesaran runs. And, he's retiring. Tomorrow is his seminar. But you can absolutely keep in touch with him, and you can send him an email. Once you've gotten through your core classes and you've done well in the econometrics classes, we will have Timothy Armstrong still, and we have a very strong econometrics faculty. They can absolutely hire you as an RA as well. So you can get a job in that sense, but it'll be tied to a faculty.
Thank you. The last question, hi, Professor, for the position of data analysis. As you know, the students graduate from data science, CS, may also apply for this kind of job. How can AEE students stand out?
You are going to be much better than somebody who's coming from a data science program. Because remember, a lot of programs tend to glamorize the word data science. And because data science is nothing but statistical machine learning in that sense, if you have learned Python, which you'll learn Python in my class, I'll even teach you SQL. I'll even teach you how to do data visualization. I'll give you a lot of AI tools in my class where you are really going to be much better at data analysis than somebody who's coming from a data science program. Because, as economists, you are trained in a very different way. For example, things like vector order regressions, are much better at prediction than transformers. ChatGPT is a transformer, but for certain types of data, our econometric models are way, way better. None of the students in engineering have even heard of a vector autoregression. And so I would say, don't compare yourself to them. You are different, but you are better because you have rigorous mathematical and statistical training, not just coding. Okay, because I'll be honest with you, in the next 5 years, almost all optimization and all algorithms will be done by AI. It is very, very good. And if your focus is just on coding, then you are going to be in a bit of a trouble. But if you focus on critical thinking skills, communication skills, applying interpretation of data output from the model, understanding what is it that going into the model in terms of the equations, the math, you're going to be fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks for joining today and share so much useful and detailed information. And
Ratika said it all, but not only the coding you will learn here, but also what kind of data you have, right? So where it does come from, what kind of economic background that results in that data. So in that sense, you will have a little bit like a meta knowledge about the underlying process. I had a friend who's working at Google. He's my high school friend, and he's a computer scientist from Chicago. He has a PhD there. And he came and he was working on these ad-click auctions. Like this happens like 6-7 years ago. And he came to me and we were talking like as high school friends. And he was talking about this code about the ad-click auctions and something related. And I say, well, but that's not the Nash equilibrium of this game. Like that's the second price auction doesn't work like that. And he says, no. So of course he was doing some part of that program. So he didn't understand the underlying theoretical logic of the generalized second price auction. And he was on this project for a whole year, but because he was responsible for a very small section, he was doing it right. I mean, he didn't cause any problems, but he didn't understand the main mechanics of this. Then I found it really interesting that, wow, I mean, coming from the econ background, we have a much larger overview picture of the whole thing from start to finish, kind of. So in that sense, we also have this philosopher side, kind of, as I was proud on that. So in that sense, I think Econ has something to offer, even in addition to the analysis of the data itself, Yeah, that was all I wanted to add.
thank you, Dr. Cadiz.
Yeah, thank you all for being here tonight with us. Oh, it's morning in Asia, but thank you all for being here. If we didn't get to you for any questions, feel free to email me or Dr. Narag, and we'll be loving to answer all your questions. And our program is still recruiting, so our application deadline again is April 30th. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
you.
so much. And just Candice mentioned the slides show the email info, their audiences. You could take a screenshot. Okay. Everyone, this will be the end of today's webinar. Thanks for joining USC Graduate Programs event today. We will continue to have series of webinars to bring cutting-edge knowledge and insights to you.